Hello and welcome back. The information in this book almost perfectly lined up with my childhood experiences. So, All My Stripes by Shaina, Rudolph, Danielle Royer, illustrated by Jennifer Zivoine, is awesome. It does a great job illustrating both with words and images what growing up with autism, especially higher functioning autism, was like for me. So, the main protagonist is Zane, a zebra, the one that's on the cover, who has autism. And Zane went through a lot of experiences that are talked about in the book that I shared. Not all of them, and some of them were different. And I want to highlight some of those and why I thought it was awesome. So, one thing for me is story time. Fire alarm drills as a kid, and even as an adult when I worked in an office or in a college, in whether it was in my apartment building or the during school hours when science building or another building had a fire drill and I was there, the sound was physically painful. And when I was younger, I would cover my ears, and when social stigma covered that was became more painful than the physical pain that went through my ears and into my bones, I would not cover my ears and I would just deal with the physical pain in my head, in my ears, and through my whole body. And like I said, it doesn't just hurt my ears when a fire alarm goes off. I can feel it in my bones, like vibrating and like I'm going to try not to go into detail about it because it's just visceral. And unlike though Zane in the story, as a kid, I had teachers who were great with noticing that I was struggling with it and making sure I was in line, in class, accounted for, even if I was struggling. And so for me, that was helpful to some extent because it made sure that I was included and that I was counted and that I made it outside. However, I still got the social stigma of covering my ears because of the pain and the dysregulation from it. So, another little story of how this book specifically, All My Stripes, is really awesome in illustrating how it can be for individuals, especially kids with autism, is like Zane in the book. There are certain textures and feelings I don't do well with as a kid or as an adult. So for Zane, it's certain types of paint on his hooves. That's understandable. They do. I'm not going to go into all the detail because I don't want to detract from the book or reading the book. I recommend it. We'll get to more why as we keep going. But I want to talk about another comparison that I think they did well is the touching and the textures. I don't like certain textures, and that's a common thing. Sensitivities to stimulus are a commonality with individuals like me and others who live with autism. And it can be very difficult. I also have sensitivities to certain sounds and volumes, etc. Textures can be physical textures, touch textures, can be especially difficult at times, nauseating or just upsetting in a near unexplainable way to experience. Certain viscosities or qualities to certain paints or lotions on hands that have an oil or slimy feel to them. I don't feel like it takes me forever to feel like I can get them off of my skin. Styrofoam, that's a common one that I share with other people, although it's not my biggest problem and the one that I have the biggest difficulty explaining to people, which is wool. Wool is a difficulty for me, and partially because it's not one that most people understand. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't like styrofoam." And like, "Oh, yeah, that's weird. It's an odd sound. It's a little, strange, and it's a weird texture." You tell people, "I don't like wool," and they're like, "What?" You're like, "It's the most uncomfortable feeling and sound. on the face of the earth. And they're like, what? And you try and explain how it sends the most uncomfortable vibrating feeling through your body, like it's the resonant frequency for your bones, to someone, even whether or not they understand the science of resonant frequencies, and that it just slowly makes you feel worse and worse in a way that is completely hard and near impossible to explain, but your body just, all of existence in your body just seems to fall apart, and your mind just seems to unravel, and your stomach and everything just starts to upset itself, and you feel like you're gonna puke, and the world and your brain just starts to become just horribly upset just because of the texture, or the thought of the sound of the texture, which is hard to explain, that the texture has a sound in your own head. And that it's a reality that I live with, is that wool is a difficult material. And this book talks about that there's certain materials, well, in this case, paint, is difficult for Zane. And I think that that's nice that they cover it in a way that's simple, paint. And it's a more high functioning situation, paint in a classroom, than say wool. Yeah, and a lot of people don't have a texture sensitivity, perhaps. There's other ones. Food is more common. And perhaps I'll do a whole video on talking about texture and sound sensitivities for myself and others, and I think that would be pertinent. Moving on, though, I do think that was a great way to cover that. The book doesn't just cover his hardships, though. The book is really great like that. Zane does start the book telling his mom about all the ways the kids at school seem to only focus on his autism and the ways he's different. The autism that he has. And things that, for me, were undiagnosed as a youth. Then his mom points out, as my mom did, often, the things that make us wonderful and unique and different, which are also often, sometimes, shared qualities of autism. And all of which are also things that I shared, like I said, things that his mom pointed out. And some of the things that the kids point out in the book are also things my mom liked about me, or some of the things the kids, that individuals didn't like about me, are also things my mom also supported in me that I think can be positives as well. But that's another video for another time. Anywho, as a late diagnosed individual with autism, all my stripes was and is wonderful, because it has allowed me to look back on the things that little kid me, did and had and struggled with, just like Zane. And some extra difficulties I had, or some other facets or components, and read about the things that he went through and recognize that those are shared experiences as a kid. Again, and that's always nice. Doing it more and more is helpful. Then to also read about the wonderful compliments from his mother is always a nice thing as well. And it reminded me of the nice things my mom said to me and her reinforcement when I was a kid. And that's always wonderful as well, to have that kind of reinforcement, which not everyone has, and I was blessed to have. Then the book ends with a few pages that are also really awesome and really great. So I want to talk about the last 3 pages as well. And those last 3 pages are targeted to adult readers, not necessarily individuals with autism, who have autism. They're targeted towards parents, educators, and therapeutic specialists more so, and in the form of both a reading guide and a letter, which are beautiful, well written, and helpful, I would suspect, to most people who haven't grown up with autism as a quality of life or a factor in their life that they have to deal with every day of their life as who they are, or a facet of who they are. It's not who we are. It's a facet of who we are. It's qualities or difficulties or challenges or adjectives is a better way to put it. And I think it's really well written, as I said at the beginning, and it does a great job illustrating stigma that can come up without And it shows that there can be supporters both at school and at home, or in other places at life and at home, that can be there for you or help reframe things or be positive and reinforcers of the way that individuals who have autism look at things or do things and process things, and that it's okay. And that that it's still valid to be who we are, even if we're different, and even if other people find it silly or strange or what other adjective they want to use, or whether they find us boring or monotonous unless we're talking about something that we really enjoy, that we're comfortable with them about, etc. And those things are difficult hardships, but the book does a great job of putting it in a wonderful light and showing that there can be good supports and what the value of those supports can make for an individual, at least especially at a young age. And I would posit from my own life that having those supports as an adult is just as important. Having those people who can reframe things and shine a spotlight is just as important as an adult. So please let me know what you think down in the comments. Have you read All Your Stripes? If so, do you agree with me on my thoughts on the book? Do you have sensory-based sensitivities and want to share something you've gone through? Do you have comments on my sensory-based sensitivities? Do you have any questions about anything I've said? Do you have any books that you think would be interesting or helpful if I talked about them here? Please let me know. Or any other things or thoughts that you would have, please let me know down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. But before you go, one last thing, or two last things. First off, if you stick around till the end and you're on YouTube, there'll be recommendations for additional videos. If you're not on YouTube, there'll be a link to there will be a my logo with information on where you can find more content and more information on all my other stuff. And the last thing is, and the most important thing, I guess one more thing. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy this, and share it with someone that you think might find it useful. I would greatly appreciate it. And I want you to know, most importantly, this is the most important part, that I'm glad you're here. You. I'm glad you are here. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad your loved ones are here. Take a moment to take a deep breath. If you're going through something hard, it's okay to have a hard time. It's you're worth fighting for. The ones you love are worth fighting for. You make a difference in this world. You make an impact, even if you don't see it right now. You mean so much, and you and those you love are irreplaceable. You're not alone. You are loved, and you matter. Don't give up. I'm Mike Malcolm, and I hope I see you next time.